Hello, and welcome back to the question and answer section at ClockFuneralHome.com, your best source for answers, solutions, and guidance about anything to do with funerals. I'm Dale Clock from Clock Life Story Funeral Homes, and today's question is, what do we do when someone dies? This is one of the top 5 funeral questions that we get asked here at the funeral home. And over the next few minutes, I'd like to explain some typical situations surrounding a person's death and what to do in each one of those situations. So, let's get started. What to do when someone dies has a lot to do with where the death has occurred. What is the location of the death? And so today I'd like to talk about 3 different types of situations where death typically occurs. Typically, death takes place in one of these 3 places, either in an institution, which would include a hospital, a nursing home, or a hospice house. It can take place in a residence, and that death is usually either expected, meaning the person was on hospice or they have visiting nurses involved, or there's an unexpected death. And so you need to know whether the medical examiner needs to be involved or not. And the third situation is if death occurs out of town, when someone's on vacation or they're at their winter home in Florida or a situation like that. The thing that you need to remember in any one of these situations is that the funeral home is on call 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. There is always someone working at Clock Funeral Home. And all you need to do if you have any question in any situation is call us. The numbers are listed here on the screen for each one of our locations, plus a toll-free number in case you're out of town. But if you call us first, then we can coordinate the situation and guide you through what you need to do. The first and most typical situation is when the death occurs at an institution, like the hospital, nursing home, or a hospice house. In each of these, the staff there at the institution will be very helpful in guiding you through the next steps. They will ask you what funeral home you would like to use, and of course, Clock Funeral Home would be honored to be your funeral home of choice. You will generally be given as much time as you need to be with your loved one. Sometimes other family members are called and they will come to the institution. And when the family is ready, the staff there will call the funeral home and we will send out our transfer team. After the transfer has been made to the funeral home, we will contact the family and set up an appointment to make the funeral plans. It's standard procedure for most funeral homes to ask for permission to embalm the body at some point during this time. Now, embalming is not a requirement of the law, and the family must approve this procedure before it's done. And generally, if you are planning on having any public viewing or visitation, then embalming is highly recommended. Otherwise, the body will be typically kept in refrigeration units until all the plans are finalized. It's also important to know that it's very common for us to arrange a private family viewing at the funeral home for any family members who may have been out of town or were unable to get to the place of death to say their last goodbyes. I said this can be much easier on everyone as opposed to waiting several hours for someone to drive to the nursing home to do that. And at Clock Funeral Home, there are no additional charges for a private family viewing because we know how important it can be, especially in the case of cremation where there will be no public visitation. The next situation is when the death occurs at a residence and the death is expected. Typically, this person has been sick for a time and hospice or visiting nurses and the family doctor has been involved. If the medical staff is not at the home when the death occurs, the family generally calls them and they come to the home and guide the family through the next steps. The medical examiner is not required in this situation. It's common for family members to gather at the home at this time for final goodbyes, and when they are ready, the medical staff will contact the funeral home and we'll send our transfer team out to the house. After the transfer has been made to the funeral home, we will contact the family to set an appointment, and typically at that time we would ask permission to embalm if the family is considering services where public visitation is going to happen. Once again, a private family viewing can be arranged at the funeral home for those who are unable to get to the home to say their final goodbyes. The next situation is when death occurs at a residence, but the death is unexpected. That means someone dies unexpectedly, or you come home and find that someone has died, or they die in their sleep during the night. In this situation, the medical examiner is required. You need to call 911 or call the funeral home, and we will guide you through the steps. The medical examiner then comes out to the residence to investigate the situation. They will ask the family questions and they will investigate the scene. And when the medical examiner is all done, they will contact the transfer team and they'll come out to the home to transfer the body. The medical examiner may order an autopsy in this situation if they are unable to determine the cause of death without an autopsy. The transfer team will take the body to where the autopsy is going to be taken place, and then they will transfer the body back to the funeral home when the autopsy is done. The funeral home personnel will contact the family during this time and try to set an appointment to make final arrangements. And once again, a private family viewing is available at the funeral home for family members who still need to say their last goodbyes. The last situation is when the death occurs out of town. In other words, if you are on vacation, wintering in Florida, or at a medical clinic like Mayo Clinic or Cleveland Clinic, and the death occurs there. If you are not going to have any services in the town where the death occurred, then you need to call your hometown funeral home first. We will guide you through the next steps. We will contact a funeral home in the area where the death occurred and subcontract with them to handle all the body preparation. We will also coordinate with them to arrange for the transfer of the body back here to West Michigan, and whether that transfer will take place by car or by air. Typically, the only additional cost that will be incurred by the family is for the transportation back here to West Michigan. We will be in contact with the family by phone to coordinate all travel and arrival times and make as many decisions as we can over the phone, and then meet with the family once they arrive back here in West Michigan to make the final decisions. You know, over the years I've often joked with families that I've been trying to get people to die Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, but it just doesn't seem to be working out like that. And you know, they chuckle, and it's okay, because at the funeral home we know that's our job. We're on call 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And whether the death occurs at 2 in the afternoon or 2 in the morning, and whether the death occurs down the street or halfway around the world, call us. We're there for you. We're going to walk you through the whole process and hold your hand through it all. And that's it for another session of Questions and Answers at ClockFuneralHome.com. And I hope we've answered that question, what do we do when someone dies? But in case you have some more questions, please feel free to contact me at Dale Clock at ClockFuneralHome.com. And I'll get back to you with the answers as soon as I can. Once again, this has been Clock, Life Story Funeral Home, your best source for answers, solutions, and guidance about anything to do with funerals. I'm Dale Clock. Thanks for listening.